What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another Game Time Discussions. I'm Cameron Selby, and we're going to be bringing back our Love Hates videos. This is 2.0, and we are going to start with the hates videos, some pessimism. This one is going to be attacking more so the redraft platforms, Yahoo, Sleeper, ESPN. Last time we did Best Ball. Obviously, there are some correlations, but some big differences, and so that's why some guys are omitted. But these are brand new, fresh 8 names. We're trying to give you just kind of a basis of the guys that we're just avoiding outright. Yeah, some of the guys that were in the 1.0 we still dislike, and we'll just kind of give a quick recap in a second. But this is more so redraft. This is your big money leagues, your friend leagues, your enemies. Which guys are just standing out that just we're not getting there, especially where they're going via their current draft capitals. So I'd say let's just get right into it. So like I mentioned, here's a 1.0 recap of all the guys that we brought up. That was 11 names. We went through a whole lot of names last time. Bashal Tootin, Darnell Mooney, who just got injured and he will be missing the rest or the majority of training camp. So kind of guys that we're just still not getting to. Jalen Warren probably would not make this list now that we know Aaron Rodgers is in the fold and his ADP hasn't really risen like I thought it might have, especially when Aaron Rodgers was there. So he's kind of right exactly where we have him. Tyrone Tracy, meh. Matthew Golden, big difference on redraft. So he definitely wouldn't make this video because basically all redraft rookies, rookie wide receivers especially, are just discounted ADPs. Debo Samuel's kind of just much lower in comparison to Best Ball. George Pickens, kind of a polarizing name because we're really not getting to him, especially in DK and underdog drafts. But I mean, he is a 6th-round pick in redraft, so it's kind of one of those things where it's like I understand the gamble. RJ Harvey, he just kind of is where he is, but J.K. Dobbins, he hasn't really dropped enough, but is what it is. Tedero McMillan, big example of a guy that's going in the 4-5 turn in best ball drafts, and he's going in the 7th, 8th round in redraft. Huge. One of the biggest differences in the top overall 100 in terms of platform versus platform. So he definitely wouldn't make this list, and he's very intriguing at that price point. T. Higgins, we really just, it's the same exact thing on both sides. Bucky Irving, same thing. We're just taking big stands on avoiding those guys. So, but first name in the 2.0 list, let's just kick right over. It is Cooper Kupp. Not what we have loved to see. I've always liked Cooper Kupp, but it's just kind of one of those things where he's on a new team, went to a weird situation, and we're just not really buying that he's just going to rebound and have a consistent value for you throughout the entirety of this. Over the last 3 years, he's missed 18 total games, and last year hit the last final 5-6 game stretch. He really was a non-factor in a better offense with a better quarterback and just a true wide open. There's no other number 2 there. And he's still just decreasing snaps, decreasing targets, production. He was just a non-factor the last 2 full months of the season, if you want to include the playoffs. So he goes over, and now he's in the top 80 in ESPN. No, thank you. Even Yahoo being just kind of really close to where we have him ranked, we're just really not getting there because there is a huge difference in wide receiver rank because obviously they're also baking in. We're just thinking that there's gambles that I'd rather just take a gamble on these rookies with better opportunities, not just take a chance that Cooper Kupp is just going to bring back to what he did when he was a Triple Crown winner 3 years ago. Like ESPN or fantasy seasons are like dog years on crack. Like 3 years ago is just basically a decade ago. It is a completely different regime, a different player, different situation. He has Sam Darnold, not Matthew Stafford. And it's just one of those things where we're just not even touching him with the 10-foot pole at these current price tags. Jumping it over, it's going to be a tight end that has been a staple in the game of fantasy football. He's been a tight end 6 or better from a points per game perspective for a half decade now. His lone non-top 10 fantasy season was 2023, where he was on a pace. He averaged 13.5 PPR points a game and then broke his leg in that tackle that ended up making a rule change on the hip drop. But last year was a weird one. He was the biggest scare in football last year because if you remember correctly, the opener, you saw Isaiah Likely absolutely go off, one of our big tournament plays, and then Mark Andrews was basically a big fat zero. I know he did have a car accident the couple weeks prior, and maybe that was a huger issue, but he just kind of seemed like less of a part of the offense for the first month of the season. And then somehow still led all tight ends in touchdowns, finished with 11 on the year, 10 between weeks 1 through 17, which is what I really care about. But still, nonetheless, he was a tight end 6 overall. And right now, it's just one of those things where I don't know what to do with him. And it's very interesting because his ADPs are much, much lower. We've been doing a lot of, best ball drafts, and he's right around pick 90 or 100 on both platforms. And that's kind of right where we have him. And I know tight end ADPs are inflated in redraft leagues because there's not many of dominant tight ends. But Isaiah likely really became a integral part of this offense, was a better receiver throughout most of the year, but Mark Andrews just kind of started splitting snaps, and it just feels like it's going towards a downward trajectory for him. So right now on Yahoo, you have to spend a fifth into the fifth round, early sixth round pick on him. ESPN kind of the same thing, but one round back. It is a little bit all over the place because even Sleeper is one round further behind that. But we're just kind of prioritizing, if you're going to spend on a dominant tight end, go all the way up to a Kittle, a Brock Bowers, a Trey McBride, who I know you got to spend a second or third round draft capital or even fourth, depending on the platform for George Kittle. But I'd rather do that than do a 5th, 6th, 7th round pick on Mark Andrews, which I don't know if another year is just going to have him go down even further, getting snaps, getting red zone targets with Isaiah Likely in the fold. I don't know if this fumble and drop 2-point conversion in the divisional round is going to lead to even more negative connotation towards him. I mean, he was in trade rumors all offseason. He was a candidate, especially at the draft day, of being traded because they do have somebody in the wings that is capable and was successful in a breakout quote unquote season as a tight end too. But it's weird. It's one of those weird ones where he's right in the close range where Sam Laporta and Kelsey and Hawkinson are. I just don't think he's in that group. I think he's in the tier behind that. He's just closer to the range of the David Njoku, the Evan Ingram. And if it's just player for player, I'm not necessarily against it. I mean, our tight end ranking isn't that much lower than two of the three platforms, being tight end 8 versus tight end 9. That's just slim pickings. But it's just one of those things where 5th, 6th, 7th round, there's a ton of receivers in the redraft platforms that I'm just like all over right now because they just should not be there. And I'd rather just not invest my money in this tight end that I just don't know the trajectory where he is currently going to end up this season. I'd rather just go that direction with the wide receivers. I'd rather just go that direction with the wide receivers or get another flex player than somebody who I'm just truly uncertain about the trajectory of where he's going to go this season. If you think Andrews is going to be the same player that we know and love and has been a staple for the last 5 years, go for it. I'm not going to stop you, but he is age 30 this season. And it's just one of those things where I don't really necessarily know that touchdown production where he basically doubled his 2022 and 2023 total with 11 last year is going to be sustainable enough to draft him as high as he's currently going in drafts. And then a quarterback that's just very interesting. And I was very surprised by his ADP, and that's Bo Nix. Going as high as he is was pretty shocking to me. It's very similar to the CJ Stroud route, where last year, after a really good rookie season, that he was very fine as a mid-tier QB1, but obviously he was drafted as a 2B. He was obviously drafted as a QB2, so massive value on return. And right now, he's just vaulted himself into the 6th round discussion. And that is a massive, massive difference than what is currently going on in best ball right now. He's right now QB 9 or 10. Obviously, they're stackable pieces. We've drafted some of Bo Nix going in the 90s and 100s, but going in the 60s, that is a huge, huge gap based on where we currently have him going. I mean, we have him right behind a Kyler Murray, a Caleb Williams in our rankings, and he's going a good 20 to 40 spots higher than both of them. And we just think that no, you're down over here. I understand the hype, I understand the excitement about him, but these two other guys have the same exact kind of upside rushing. They have weapons around them, and yeah, obviously Sean Payton is the better head coach of the three situations that those guys are currently in, but it doesn't matter. I don't think that the talent or the production is going to warrant being that big of a gap this year. And on top of that, Bo Nix, I don't see a bigger ceiling than finishing, a 5, 6 round range of a quarterback, which is basically a QB8. That's exactly where he's kind of consensus right now. I think Right now, we have him as QB10. Like I said, behind those main two guys, that is the biggest kind of topic of discussion is discrepancy on price and just hating the fact that he is 50 picks before Caleb Williams, who also is inheriting a offensive mind, has allegedly better weapons and a situation where he could be playing from behind more and have inflated stats. So Bo Nix, incredible rookie year. I'm not taking anything away from him, but the price tag feels pretty trappy to me. And I feel very kind of confident saying that. It's not that I hate him. We're taking some of him in best ball, but it's because best ball platforms are feeling the same way of, man, that's 3 rounds earlier than where we have him going. And that's the sharper ADP. And that's kind of what I'm going to trust, especially at this tier of quarterback, which he's kind of smack dab in the middle of about 7, 8 names. Even Dak Prescott is somebody who we might mention on the Loves video. 50 spots difference in ADP for these two guys that have the same similar upside production, and I might even give I might be able to give an argument that the cheaper guy has a bigger upside. That's just kind of one of those things where I'm just not there on this price. Now we kick it over to Kansas City, which Kansas City we've hyped up a little bit. There's certain names, and we're taking massive stands on certain guys in that offense. But Isiah Pacheco, he's kind of one of those where I don't really know what to do with this year. I mean, last year, obviously, he was a kind of third, fourth round pick that we were truly avoiding. That was an awful price tag. And we were right, but it wasn't. I'm not going to just take confidently say that I was spot on with said player or thing when a significant injury goes down. Week 2, he broke his leg. He missed half the year, and they re-signed Kareem Hunt. The biggest kind of eye-opening thing was that months after he did return, he just wasn't getting any kind of touches. I mean, even in the postseason, this wasn't even a 50-50 split in a 4 or 3 game sample size. This was he's getting 3 to 4 touches a game. And right now, he just has jumped back into the 6th round conversation. I know it is a contract year. I usually like betting on running backs in a contract year, but it is also in situations where you have no competition behind you and you have all the opportunity to just succeed. He was a RB13 overall in his one healthy season as a starter in 2023 when he had no competition. Jahmyr McKinnon left and he was just by himself, averaging about 15 points a game, which is very strong. And that's why he jumped as high as he did in ADP last summer. This year, I mean, Elijah Mitchell, who did miss all of last year, Kareem Hunt, who kept the job essentially, even though he was very, very inefficient throughout most of his run last year. And then also Brashard Smith, who we've hyped up a lot as a scat back guy to replace the Jarrett McKinnon-esque role. And all 4 of them right now, and I know it is early in camp, all 4 of them have gotten some run with the ones so far. So it's not like Pacheco is just inherited back this role and he's just back to 20 touches by default. And maybe he doesn't go for 150 all-purpose yards, but he'll get the 4 to 5 targets because no one's there. He'll get this and he'll get that. In 2023, they had no receiver competition. That's why Rashee Rice also kind of made the most of his opportunity as a rookie. And then also, he had nothing behind him. Now, receiving core is all healthy, and running backs are behind him already getting runs with the one. So I see him in a stretch where he's going to average 12 to 15 touches. And I'm just not there as a borderline RB2 going as a RB23 when I'd rather bet on a DeAndre Swift or other guys that we know are clear and defined that they will have to either get injured or just massively blow it to lose that opportunity. Isiah Pacheco could play well and still only be he could play well and still only kind of have a max amount of touches of 17 to 18. And that's just not really what I'm looking for here. So if I'm going to be looking around this area, I'd rather bet on a James Conner or DeAndre Swift. I'd rather bet on one of these rookies in Travion Henderson, RJ Harvey, um, Caleb Johnson, all these guys that could very late in the season just have all the touches that are important. And I just don't see Isiah Pacheco being that guy. I know it is contract year. He is a former 7th round rookie, so I don't think this is a very different situation than a Kenneth Walker being a contract year of a former day 2 pick that has all the opportunity when he is healthy. Isiah Pacheco just kind of lost that spot and he never really regained it. So I don't really anticipate that they're just going to give it all back to him and he will just keep it the way that he plays based on the different types of running backs they can implement this year. Because Elijah Mitchell, when he was healthy in San Francisco on limited touches, was exciting. Way back when, he was a former 6th, 7th round pick because of his breakout years. And Rashard Smith were really high, like we said. He's a former receiver turned running back in space. So there's just a lot of mouths to feed from the running back perspective, let alone overall. Xavier Worthy's there. Rasheed Rice, when he will be healthy / unsuspended, will be there. Marquise Brown will actually be playing with the Chiefs this year. And then you still have Travis Kelce, who I know has lost a step, but he is still going to get those 6 to 8 touches a game. So with that said, we're just not there. And I would just go different directions in the middle rounds if I was you. And this next guy, DK Metcalf, this is purely, I don't need to even have stats specifically to back this up, but it is just wrong player to the wrong situation at the wrong time with the wrong quarterback to feed him that ball. DK just he's not a route runner. He is just a go ball, deep ball, go up and get it guy. That is not what Aaron Rodgers has ever been as a quarterback. He's been to get it out really quickly to the Devontae Adams of the world, the Jordy Nelsons, or pristine route runners in the short to mid game is really kind of where he makes his receivers have good fantasy production. DK is just not that specific player. And I know that there's not really much competition. George Pickens is gone and Roman Wilson missed most of his rookie year. Don't really know if he'll be a thing. Calvin Austin, even though we do like him as a slot, it's not like Calvin Austin as a specific player is going to take away a large amount of volume to have any kind of concern. This is just Arthur Smith has never really produced successful, consistent fantasy producers that warrant high draft capital. I mean, Bijan Robinson was a RB17, I think, as his rookie season, playing healthy all 17 games, and just frustratingly just don't give his best players the ball in the right spots. And DK last year in a offense where Geno Smith was actually a very, very good quarterback, he was outproduced by a Jackson Smith and a Jigba and averaged less than 13 fantasy points a game. And right now, if that is kind of the trajectory of, yeah, he was just under 1,000 yards, would have got there if he played all 17. But just let's give him the benefit of the doubt that he's going to not miss those 2 games. He's going to get over 1,000 yards, get 5 or 6 touchdowns. 13 points a game is not going to get the job done as a 4th round pick. I don't care what it is. That is one of those 5th, 6th round safety floor guys. And I don't even think 13 points a game in this offense, in this situation, is really his floor. So with that said, DK is just probably one of my least favorites in the entire fantasy class right now. DK is one of the biggest differentiators we have negatively for this entire top 100 that we have. Obviously, if you look at our rankings, he's a wide receiver 2, borderline top 20 receiver on all 3 platforms, and we have him outside the top 30. He's behind a Jacoby Myers and a Stephon Diggs, who were going 3 rounds before him. And we just feel like Jacoby has a defined role, and it's baked in floor that we know he's going to get, the 12 points a game. And it's 3 rounds later. Stephon Diggs is fully healthy back in camp. That was not expected. And he's already at a full go with a wide open room and a quarterback that has a good situation, an improved offensive system that even warrants some kind of upside. Aaron Rodgers, he didn't really have the upside for Garrett Wilson as a 1-2 turn 2nd round pick receiver when you knew that going in. Devontae Adams, he was a 2nd round pick that eventually got traded over. And it took him a long time to even have any kind of fantasy relevant impact. And I know we baked in at the very end when Aaron Rodgers actually was somewhat of a competent quarterback when they were already out of playoff contention. And he had a 0 catch half that translated into a second half where he had over 200 yards in one of the fantasy playoffs. But week in and week out, Rodgers is not going to consistently give DK Metcalf the opportunity to have 13 targets like we used to know and love Devontae Adams to do. So he is going right around the range of receivers that we're just not even close. I don't think that the upside is even close to a DJ Moore and Xavier Worthy, Devontae Adams, Lynn Sutton. I mean, Devontae Smith without a AJ Brown or just one of the guys going down. Devontae Adams vaults into very comfortable wide receiver two discussion. He's just kind of a lot of mouths to feed in that offense. So all these guys, we're just not. So all these guys, not only do we prefer them, it's just not even close. And he's kind of going in this range. So we're a big fade on DK Metcalf this year, and I feel pretty good about saying that. Next up, this guy isn't necessarily a controversial ADP or just somebody that we hate as a player, but it's weird vibes, and it's James Cook. He is going into a contract year. There was some questions on whether or not he would hold out because he was seeking a new contract earlier in the offseason, and he did miss, I think it was minicamp. But he's been there, as far as I know and can tell, at a training camp this year. And it's a weird one because of the touchdown output. The first 2 years as a part-time back, he played all but one game in his first 2 seasons. And I know his first year he was a backup. The next year he was a starter and had a grand total of 9 touchdowns in his first 2 seasons, only 4 rushing touchdowns both of those years combined. And then he jumps up with less touches the next year than he did in 2023, and then vaults to 16 rushing touchdowns, 18 total, and he ends up as RB9. He by far had the fewest amount of opportunities compared to any other running back in the top 15. He only had 235 touches or opportunities, including targets and attempts, and it just wasn't even close. Only 2 guys had less than 200 carries that were RB15s or better. The other one was Devon Achane, which obviously he was one of the target leaders and had 87 targets, 78 receptions as a running back with 6 receiving touchdowns. So he is in a group kind of by himself and I don't really know what to do with. I mean, his 17 points a game was very respectable. It's not like he has just an insane amount of competition behind him or even at receiver for that matter. But I just feel like that was the best we could see of him was a RB9. And, the 16, 18 touches, I feel like it's a little bit of an outlier. And let's just kind of meet in the middle and say it was 8 touchdowns or 10 touchdowns total. And that jumps him all the way down to like 13, 14 fantasy points a game, which is kind of not what you need as a early 3rd round pick right now. So right now he's kind of going in situations where even Chase Brown, he part-time as a scat back last year. He didn't really get more opportunities until later, especially when Zach Moss went down. And Zach Moss at the end was just really cooking. And Chase Brown at the end was really cooking. On top of that, had a ton of targets and opportunities in that regard. And the other thing that's interesting is I know you don't need a ton of rushing attempts just to produce in fantasy football. You can get the Alvin Kamara effect where you just rush for 700 yards every season, but you get 8 targets a game and it works out. But not only was he one of 3 guys in the entire top 15 to have less than 200 rushing attempts, only having 197. He also had the second fewest targets. The other one was Derrick Henry, which we don't draft Derrick Henry for receiving work. We draft him for rushing touchdowns and 150 rushing yards in the cold in December. So with that said, he just kind of feels like an outlier based on his last year production. And I don't expect a, reoccurring theme going on here. Yeah, he's in a high potent offense and he could have the 12 to 15 touchdown upside, but with the limited opportunities without having a ton of stuff from the backups to really threaten him, it's Ray Davis, it's Ty Johnson. And yeah, we like them as kind of fill-ins, but they're nothing to be a 1B situation. So if he is the true running back 1 in that offense and he is not getting a workhorse role, it's kind of hard to really convince myself to invest a 3rd round ADP in him. So I'd rather just kind of go another receiver. I'd rather go a Chase Brown, somebody that we know not only has the receiving work, but they have the volume and opportunities to just kind of show that you don't need 18 touchdowns just to crack the top 10. And lastly, this one might be a little controversial, but sometimes we have to take stands. I'm not going to just say I love every single first round pick and you can be happy with every single one of them, because at the end of the day, half of them work and 3 of them are okay, and then 2 or 3 of them get hurt every year. That just kind of is what it is. And this year we're taking a stand and we're saying Jahmyr Gibbs is just not the guy based on the ADPs that he's going, especially in redraft formats where he's a top 5 pick and he's right next to a Bijan Robinson or Saquon Barkley. And we've not only feel that he is behind a Christian McCaffrey and Ashton Jeanty for kind of different reasons, because we know it's not even different reasons, really. Ashton Jeanty, we know, is going to rival getting 350 touches, maybe even more, in a Chip Kelly offense that usually produces running backs well in his previous 10 years in the NFL. Sign me up for that. It's the floor and the ceiling baked in all in one. With Christian McCaffrey, people, it's weird. People want to say they're concerned about his injuries. And I know last year, because he was the 101, and this was not the first time that he was the 101 and did not pan out due to an injury. But the previous years, there was a hamstring, there was a sprained ankle, and then last year it was a calf injury starting the year that ended up it was Achilles tendonitis, and then ended up being a calf injury that shut him down to where he didn't even score a touchdown. But losing Jordan Mason, and he has no competition behind him, 4 touches, and he is healthy in training camp. You cannot live in last year's past to predict this year's future. And with Jahmyr, he was the darling of the fantasy postseason because he was RB1 there. He had a 40-point game in the final week of the season, if you even go that far, week 18. But all of that also was without David Montgomery. And all of that was with Ben Johnson. And all of that was with 3 interior offensive linemen that did not depart this offseason. They had a center retire. They had to replace 2 guards. And now it's just both coordinators are gone. On top of that, there's a lot of mouths to feed. And on top of that, David Montgomery will be back at least to have a role. He's not going to just... They didn't keep David Montgomery and sign him to only have 5 touches a game. He is going to have the 10 to 15 touches every single game. And on top of that, rival a 50-50 split with goal line work. I know Jahmyr ended up with 16 touchdowns through weeks 1 through 17 last year, nearly 20 points a game. But a lot of that boom happened after David went down. And on top of having a regression this year where I don't expect them to lead the points per game, I don't expect the kind of success we've seen over the last 2 years. They also have a really tough playoff schedule. They also have a really tough fantasy postseason schedule where they play the Rams, the Vikings, and the Steelers. And all 3 of those defenses are above average, and 2 of them were top 6 overall against running backs last year. So it's one of those situations where there's a lot of negative baking in, and obviously there's going to be some Detroit guys still produce and go off and do well, but not every single one of them. And I'm just looking at the ADPs, and I'm fine with a 1-2 turn Amon-Ra St. Brown in a PPR format. I'm fine with... I know Embry's guy is Jameson Williams, and we're huge on different sides of things. Well, in redraft, he's going 2.5 rounds later than he is in best ball right now. So, okay, I'm fine with it. You can convince me Sam Laporta, because he's had back-to-back strong seasons as a tight end, to invest a 5th round pick in him. Sure. I'm all ears. David Montgomery, but he's got the floor baked in, so 7th round running back, whatever. But Jahmyr Gibbs, you have to hit your top 5 pick. You have to. And CeeDee Lamb, Justin Jefferson, even Christian McCaffrey, Ashton Jeanty we brought up, Puka Nacua, all of those guys I would rather pick before Jahmyr Gibbs and start my team with, even if I had the 5th pick and Bijan, Saquon, Justin, and Jamar didn't fall to me, and I have to make a decision, and it says ADP wise Gibbs is the best guy. I'd still rather have those guys behind me, and I feel pretty good about saying that. And then he's in the range of the Nico, the Malik Neighbors, the Brian Thomas Jr., even Derrick Henry. I can make an argument. I'd rather have Derrick Henry over Jahmyr Gibbs. It feels safer. It feels more comfortable. And I just don't feel like there's any kind of letdown coming from his production where Jahmyr, there is a path for it. I know he can still have the 15 points a game, but 15 points a game might not get it done for you as a top 5 pick. So we're taking a stand. You can disagree with it. That's okay. Let me know if you do. But I can't love all these guys. That is disingenuous to say all 12 of these first round picks are awesome. Just close your eyes and pick one. You have to pick stands on some. And he is a guy that we're just going to be different from the field on, especially in best ball. We don't have a single share of him on redraft. Even if I had the 5th pick, all those guys are gone. I'm going elsewhere, and I will not be owning Jahmyr Gibbs this year. But with that said, guys, that's all I got for you. We appreciate you guys tuning in. Please leave a like, comment, subscribe. Let us know what you think. Who are some of your biggest hates right now based on where they're going? Again, this is a redraft video, so we're kind of getting into that. It is still a little early because best ball ADPs are much, much sharper, and redraft, it's a little bit slow to the field. So it was a lot harder to kind of pick the 8 guys, especially after doing a 1.0 video, different ones to kind of sell you on why I'm not really in on them. Love video, it's a very different thing because there is a big difference, especially like I said, rookie ADPs, but you'll have to just tune to that one for next week. But like I said, we can't thank you guys enough for tuning in. We're doing best ball streams every week on Thursdays mostly. It's been a whole lot of fun. We've been doing a lot of drafts, so get in there, do that. Discord, we need to start kind of booming that up a little bit. We're getting closer into August. Training camp is here. It's afoot. Everything's kind of popping, and there's news to be discussed every single week. So we can't thank you guys enough. We will see you guys next time.